And welcome to another episode of The Focal Thought. My guest today is Rajesh Rajan. How are you, Rajesh?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you.
Good, thanks. Thanks again for coming on the show. And you are the owner of LearnXtra Academy. And I love your motto, which says the pathway towards excellence. And I wanted to get you on the show because I recently, in the past couple of years, found out about Abacus Master Canada. And essentially, this is a mental math model where we use the Soroban, which is basically a Japanese abacus. And, this is the origination of the methodology where kids are using this abacus and doing mental math in their head, leveraging off this instrument. And the abacus is traditionally similar to the Chinese abacus. It's got beads. It's made out of a wooden board frame. And the nice thing about this, when I was looking into it, is usually math uses the left hemisphere of the brain, which is analytical. But with this sort of methodology, the kids are sort of visualizing the beads in their head, which is using the visual aspect of the brain, which is the right hemisphere. So whereas traditionally in math you're getting just one side of the hemisphere, here actually getting both sides of the hemisphere. And I've seen these kids in action, and it's amazing because I think your program is geared towards children aged 6 to 13 years old generally. And you're
Mhm.
seeing these 6-year-olds doing operations of, 2 digits each. So, you can just say, what is 33 times 47? And boom, they're spitting out the answer. Whereas someone myself in my generation, I was doing using a calculator or, literally with a pen and paper and an eraser, actually going through the motions of the operation. So, that's just sort of the basic fundamental of it. If I could start by asking you, how did you get into this, into the abacus methodology and the franchise?
First of all, let me start off by saying thank you. Thank you for having me in this forum. I think it's a great place for me to come and talk about what we do, how we do, and why is it that we do. I'll probably step back a little bit in terms of probably going back to say, why exactly did we start this out? A couple of years back, when we were in the journey of with my son going through schooling and stuffs like that, we realized the fact that uh, his he always had a slowness in terms of learning things up, right? As simple as even holding a pencil and writing it out on a piece of paper. His holding the way in which would hold the pencil would be very weird and write it down. So we started looking at how do we work this out by not putting enough pressure on the child from a learning aspect perspective, but at the same time making it fun, making it interesting for him, and also getting it to a way that he's still one level up in his curriculum than his peers. That's when we came across this philosophy of abacus and how it works and what it does and stuffs like that. And slowly we started venturing into it, and which over a period of time resulted in we taking up this franchise of mental math and started teaching this up to the students. So that's the journey of how we truly started off. It all started off with my son, and trying to figure out a way to help him out. And we said, if this is working with our son, I'm sure there's many other kids in the environment today in our community who needs help, who needs support, and what better way of providing that out through a teaching and an educational academy.
Correct. So your son was the inspiration for starting everything.
Absolutely, yes, yes.
Okay. And where is he at now? Like, has he sort of gone through all the levels, or is he continuing with the levels, or?
He's completely surpassed all the levels. He is in grade 7 right now, but I've seen that it's just not with an educational mindset that he is right now. He is also slowly starting to develop the social skills of how do we work through this, and he's slowly getting into the mode of mentoring, where he is now able to slowly start teaching other kids on how it needs to be done, right? So for us as a business, this has been a great inspiration because it not only helps us to support the community, but I can see my son also slowly developing those skills of social aspects and also the learning ability that has come up with him.
And that's pretty good. I mean, for someone in grade seven to start mentoring, right? Usually we hear mentors being much later, in the
Mhm.
years, or maybe after even school, when you're sort of working, and usually we see it much later in life. But for grade seven, that's pretty good to start mentoring.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it gives him a good flavor, especially when we're talking to parents. It gives him a flavor of how are you trying to market the stuff? Like how are you trying to put across the stuff to a parent in a nice, delicate, soft way, but still communicating the message out. When you're interacting with a child, you have to get down to the level of the child in teaching that aspect. And again, every child is different, right? So it gives him an opportunity to twist and turn his way of communication to the child to explain it out to the child in the way that the child understands it.
Got it. And now that he's completed all the levels, and is there six levels, I believe, or
It's 8 levels.
eight levels, sorry. So
Yeah.
now that he's completed all those levels, what have you noticed from the time he started to, the time he immediately finished?
We've seen a great change. So um, abacus as a tool, as you mentioned, is like a wooden tool that comes in, which has beads into it, right? Um, the primary concept of abacus is just not math. Okay. Uh, there are a couple of things that the abacus mental math curriculum, in fact, teaches. Math is probably the last part of it, but the very first part of it is your hand motor movement. You're working with beads. There are 13 rods in an abacus, and every rod has 5 beads that you work along, right?
Mhm.
The concept of working on this abacus is always based on a 4-finger methodology, 2 fingers on your right, which is your thumb and your pointer, and fingers on your left, which is your pointer and your middle finger. So working through these involves you to delicately manage the beads moving up, moving down in specific fingers that you have to work on. So we started noticing that as he started working through this bead motion, his hand motor movement became much more stronger, and eventually he was able to hold the pencil in a much more faster way than he would have normally done if this was not introduced out to him.
Oh, wow.
So the first part of the development that we saw just by introducing it to it is the hand motor movement, right? The second part of it that we slowly started observing is his listening skills. And I'm sure quite often as a parent, many of us would have noticed the fact that when you're telling something to the child is constantly listening, but are they interpreting back in the same language? You may have noticed that you're constantly telling something but you're not getting back the response. So the abacus mental math truly works on a principle that as much as you're working on the beats, there is always a listening component involved into it because the teacher is calling out a number. You're listening to the number, keeping it in your brain, working it in your abacus, and then giving back an answer, which means you're now improving the listening skills of a student because the child is now constantly hearing to the question, reciprocating it back, doing the mental math calculation, and giving an answer back. So the listening skills now started working, and we started observing a huge change into him because when you're talking to him, he's like immediately reciprocating back to what you had asked versus without this, he would take a little bit of a time to respond or sometimes not even respond back.
Yeah. And then you said you noticed there's a social element to that, right? What is the connection between abacus and the social connection?
So um, the curriculum in itself has been built in such a way that it's a slow phased approach to the math world, right? There are 8 levels, and every level takes 16 weeks for you to finish it out. So over a period of time, we've started learning the fact that in a class, he's been able to like now socially talk to the rest of the kids and then work in a grouped environment where every child is becoming competitive against each other to get the answers first and to like impress the teacher, if I may call that way. And
Yeah.
that is literally helping him to become socializing with the other students. Um, let's say working through math, but in a fun way, right? And at the end of the day, over a period of time, now that he has graduated through all the levels, he's now working with the children in helping them teach. So his teaching ability is now starting to build up because he's able to talk the language of the child in the way that they want to understand it.
Got it. That's amazing. So you're getting the motor skills from actually moving the beads on the rod. You're getting the listening skills, from listening to the teacher, and then
Mhm.
the social skills from interacting with the students, interacting with the teacher. And I'm sure, once you pass the levels, you gain confidence, which adds to your social skills. And I know you have
Absolutely.
competitions and tournaments as well, right? So all of that put
Yeah.
together is very holistic.
Correct. He's in grade 7 right now, and the way it's been progressed out in school is that his math skills are surpassed what they are learning at the classroom. So when a teacher is asking him a question, he's able to mentally prepare the answer and give it, let's say, in a fraction of a second, while other students are still computing it, trying to figure out how to solve for it, and then get to an answer. So that helps boost his confidence level too, because he's now at a stage where he's able to surpass his peers in the classroom and stand ahead of the game because he's able to give an answer faster than the rest of them. And the other friends are like, oh, how did you get to this answer so fast? And he's like, he feels a sense of accomplishment when he's doing that.
Got it. Yeah. And some of the kids at school, they might not have even learned the starting point, right? Like some are taking their time doing the operations, but some might not even know it at all, right? Whereas he's on the
Correct.
other extreme. He's way ahead of the game.
Correct. The way that I always look at this is that let's say division, right? When you say 22 divided by 2, you have to show the steps and school for you to get to an answer. So you have to, for division, for you to do it, you have to show the long division steps. Now we all know that for you to do the long division steps, you need to know addition and subtraction mentally for you to do the subtraction or addition. At the same time, for you to do long division, you need to know your times table um, by heart so that you are able to do this faster enough. Quite often, we've seen that most of the students have a bit of a challenge in getting into it just because they've not grown into the concept of mentally calculating it, right? They are always scrambling to write the question and then do the subtraction, then get to the next step, which is one, a time-consuming process, and number two, the accuracy of what they get is also not that good, just because they're still striving to get to that answer. Now,
Yeah.
with mental math introduced to any child, it helps them in doing these math problems mentally and giving an answer much more faster and accurately.
Correct. And for me, someone like myself, the end game is when you're at the store and you're purchasing a product, you don't want to get shortchanged, right? So you can quickly
Correct,
do that calculation. Am I getting the correct change back, right?
correct,
In
correct.
terms of a practical
Correct. And I
application.
think I think we look at it as a sense of how do I put it? We look at it as a sense of building a sort of a competition within him. So let's suppose you go to a grocery store, right? There is a
Yeah.
bill with him. We often tend to challenge him with the fact that, hey, you know what? I've got this grocery bill, but do you think it's right? And then we give him the
Yeah.
grocery bill to say, can you check if it's right? So as much as I'm trying to improve his math skills right now, I'm also trying to build a level of testing him on how fast is he able to do this, and that applies to any child within our environment right now. Just because of the fact that we all want our children to be one step ahead of the game in any educational field for that matter, right? And math being the foundation of everything, be it be art, be it be science, be it be physics, whatever you have to do, math becomes a core foundation of it. So we all believe that learning math literally helps you in every phase of life and any curriculum that you want to take up.
This is almost sort of treating math like a language then, right?
Yes, absolutely, yes. Uh, we always say the number zero has no value, but then we all know the importance of zeros in the numbers that we play around with, right? Um, so that being said, um, over a period of time, when they're learning any of their science subjects, physics, chemistry, mechanical, whatever be it all starts with math, right? And that's one of the reasons that any educational academy always emphasizes on math being their primary subject, just because that becomes the foundation for them.
Correct. And I remember reading somewhere a long time ago that there's no such thing as sort of new math in the sense that math actually shows you what actually is existing in the universe. Or rather, I should say
Mhm.
there's no such, thing as something new in the universe. Math is showing you what is already there. It's trying to explain what's existing, in the physics of things, in the different aspects of things, right?
Correct.
So I guess
Correct.
that's the language component. You can express yourself using math.
Correct. Absolutely, yes. No, I completely agree to that. Um, uh, at the end of the day, what I feel is that the children feel a sense of accomplishment when they get the answers right,
Yeah.
right? So whenever you are there, the competitive spirit is always there in them, and we just need to push them a little bit to make them successful and to make them feel that they are also equally bright enough to any other child in our environment. And what other way than math? Because it helps them build that confidence within them.
Correct. And in keeping with the sentiment that, math can be a language, do you have any thoughts or have you seen anything where math, doing this math can affect your language, whether it's your native language or, your practical language? Because, language again, linguistics, it's math again, right? It's just
Correct.
words put
Correct.
together in operations. There must
Yeah.
be some sort of similarity there, right?
A little bit of a similarity that we've seen. Our children today are so smart. They are very adaptive to the environment that they go into,
Yeah.
right? Um, when they are at home, they speak the native language. When they go to school, they speak the school's language. When they are with friends, they speak the language of their friends, right?
Yeah.
We've seen that with math being inculcated to them at an early stage. Uh, the sense of uh, the writing, the talking has all changed their mind perspective. The reason I say that is because you started off with saying there are two parts of the brain, right? One side of the brain is the cognitive part of it. The other part of the brain is about the art, and one part of the brain is about logical sense, while the other part of the brain is about creativity.
Yeah.
Abacus right now uses both parts of it. Okay. While you're using your hand motor movements with the beads, you're also keeping a logical aspect of your brain and accomplishing it. So it triggers both parts of your brain to function at the same time, which eventually helps and leads in improving the development of a child,
Yeah.
be it be language, be it be social aspect, be it be creativity, everything is being triggered out. And that's the core motive out of it, right? So we always keep telling that math is the end result. All it teaches is to improve the cognitive skills of a child, using abacus as a tool and using math as a medium to accomplish this out.
I'm a big proponent of anything that pushes, the left side of the brain and the right side, and anything that activates the different parts of the brain, especially music. I'm very serious about people getting into music, and even if you're not a professional musician or you might not have musical talent, even playing on a drum, because if music is sound and if sound is geometry organized, and if geometry is what the universe is made up of, you're playing with what has created you, right? You're playing with the
Correct.
building blocks of the universe.
Yeah.
And that's important because too often we might do things that are only focusing on certain areas of the brain. We're not really giving a chance, to have the brain express different parts of itself, right? And that's really important. I think you want to be well-rounded.
Correct. You brought up a very good topic, like music, right? As much as music is there, any instrument you take, any music you do has a node associated to it, has a beat associated to it, and all of this is all numbered out, right? So some of the beats would be 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2, or some of the beats would be 1 2 1 2 1 2, and that's how it's been taught. Again, it all boils down to numbers, it all boils down to math, it all boils down to um, improving the cognitive skill of a child.
You got it. Is there a reason why the sweet spot is ages 6 to 13? Is there any sort of rationale for that, or it's a good time to start? And
There is a scientific component behind it. Um, the age of, in fact, 5 to 8 is always considered the growing brain aspect of a child. Okay, and it's been scientifically proven that the more the languages that are introduced during this age, the child will grasp all of them and will keep it for life.
wow,
Which is
okay.
where, yeah, which is where our starting age is. It starts off with 5 and goes all the way to 13. And we've seen a lot of kids starting from the age of 5 who've started working on it from level 1, build so much that they are able to learn these aspects out. In fact, we've had parents now recently come back and said that my child is 4.5, but I still want to introduce them to abacus. You guys don't have anything. How can you help us out? And we had to literally go to the drawing board, build a new curriculum. We've introduced a level called level 0 for them, where we started teaching them what is numbers, how do you write numbers, how do you emphasize numbers, and build them the foundation for them to graduate onto level 1. We've seen very common trends with all children, like writing the number 5 as an S, writing the number 3 as number E. Those are all the foundational aspects of we've seen with every child. So these levels, especially level 0 and level 1, helps the child in understanding what is the difference between an E and a number 3? How do you write it correctly? How do you write the number 5 correctly? And how do you understand and decipher what a math is for them? Which is why going back, the age group of like 5 becomes very important, because the kid's brain is developing, and the more the languages we start at that age, they're able to grasp it much more effectively.
Correct. And they do say as well that I think up until 7 years old, you've started living off your subconscious mind, and then you're slowly getting into the conscious mind. So the first 7 years are very important because you're really programming your subconscious mind at that point.
Correct.
And that's going to
Correct.
stay with you for life.
Absolutely, yeah.
If someone's missed that window from 6 to 13, and they want to start abacus, maybe in the late teenage years into early adult years, or even if adults want to start abacus in adulthood, and maybe if seniors want to do it aged 60, 70 plus, is that possible? Is it easier to do then, or is it the same
See,
sort of
I would
challenge?
say there is no age limit for learning, right?
Yeah.
As long as you have the appetite and the zeal to learn, age is just a number. And again, number is math. So I would not say there is any bar for learning. If you're a citizen, if you're a senior, if you're an adult, you still want to learn, it's all math, math and math. So there's no age, there's no bar. More than happy for anybody who wants to learn to come along, and then you could learn, you can teach. That's more important, right? Like as you start learning, you will be able to teach them too. So there's no age for it.
No, I fully agree with that. And again, I'm a big proponent for learning. Even at, this age of my life, I'm learning new things. And for me, ABC will always stand for always be curious, because
Very
I think you
nice.
can always be learning things, and you should always push yourself to be learning things, always be expanding. It keeps your mind sharp, keeps your brain sharp. It'll, introduce you to new experiences. Um, so with the abacus, there's 8 levels. Could you just maybe summarize quickly, going through the different levels, what they
Sure.
entail?
Yeah.
And I know we've been talking about the whole numbers, Is this at all possible with fractions and decimals as well?
Yeah. So as I said, there are 8 levels in this entire curriculum. Every level runs for 16 weeks. And after every 16 weeks, the child is expected to take an exam, an assessment, get 75%, and move up to the second level. The first level starts off with a 3-row calculation of addition and subtraction. So when I say 3-row, it is 1 plus 2 minus 1. That's 3 rows for me, but that's one question for them. So we start at that level where we teach them on how to hold the abacus, which fingers to use, how do you do these math calculations, and the entire of level 1 is taught to them on what is abacus and how do you work on abacus. As they move to level 2, the complexity of the math that they've learned in level 1 increases. So that 3 level that I spoke now becomes 5 levels, right? So which is 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 is actually one question. The expectation is that they do that in abacus, but whatever they've learned in level 1, it should be done without an abacus. So what's happening is the child is literally visualizing the abacus in their brain. And when you're calling these questions out, they are using their fingers and moving the beads in their brain and then giving you an answer, which literally becomes mental math for them because they're not using any tool, right? So with that second level, they go up to third level where they now start dealing with 3-digit numbers and 3-digit numbers with 4 rows. And whatever they learned in level 1 and level 2 now has to be done without an abacus. As they graduate up the levels, we start introducing negative numbers, addition and subtraction of negative numbers, decimal numbers, squares, square roots, cube roots, multiplication, division. We go to the extent of teaching them what is a pi, what's the concept of a pi, and the tip of an iceberg on algebra of what's a plus b whole squared, a minus b whole squared. So when you get into level 8, those are the concepts that you will learn on algebra. And by that time, they must be dealing with 4-digit numbers with at least 8 rows. And if it's 1-digit or 2-digit numbers, at least 20 rows of that question, and they should be able to do it mentally without the use of an abacus. We also hold an abacus Olympiad competition every year. It's an international competition that's held at our center. And the focus of it is speed and accuracy. So as an example, the very first level of the very first stage of the competition is level 1 competition, where a child is given 10 minutes of time and 10 questions are given, and each question has 10 rows of addition subtraction. So any student internationally who's able to get all the answers correct in the least amount of time becomes a winner.
Yeah.
Right. So speed and accuracy becomes key. And like, I'm very proud to say that we've had a lot of winners over the last years, internationally recognized, and we're doing really good in terms of helping these kids become bright and become more smarter.
Wow, that's amazing. And does it get to a point where when you're at this final level and you're doing the competitions and tournaments, and when you're going with accuracy and most importantly speed, that the actual mental calculation can go subconscious, that you're not maybe focusing too much on the conscious aspect of it, that it can become automatic? Is that possible?
Yes. That's what happens is that when I say the listening component of it, because the speed at which we call out these numbers are so fast that children are listening so sharp, calculating it in their brain and giving out an answer within a fraction of a second. So it becomes their subconscious mind, a trigger of the subconscious mind where they know that there's a number that's going to come in. I have to be ready for it. I have to start working on it. And it just happens in a flow of it. They don't have to be ready for it. At any point in time, you just wake them up and ask them a number, and then they should be able to calculate it out mentally.
That's amazing. Essentially, they've transformed into a human calculator.
Well, I mean, look at the accomplishment, right? Like, when any student is able to give this out, they feel the sense of glow in their face because they feel proud that, oh my God, what have I done? Like, they don't know the fact that they've been able to give an answer so fast, but later on they realize, oh, I did give an answer so fast. I'm so proud about it. And that's a sense of accomplishment that they feel.
Well, that's great. And that's really important, especially in, this day and age where things like AI is taking over and, is automating a lot of our processes. The
Hmm.
fact that this is sort of keeping things manual and, it's a nice substitute for video games as well, because, usually video games, the benefit there is the motor skills, but you're getting the
Yeah,
motor skills here from working the beads.
absolutely.
And again, your brain um, is a tool that will output whatever you input into it. And if you don't use it, you lose it, right? So
Correct. Yeah.
this is great.
Yeah.
Thanks again for coming on the show and giving us an insight into the methodology. If people want to maybe contact you or the academy, where's the best place they can reach you guys at?
So we're located in Oshawa. We're right across McLaughlin Square in Oshawa downtown. If you need to reach out, we are available at 416-951-1036.
Okay, amazing. And I'll put those in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Rajesh, and I wish you well.
Thank you. Really appreciate you giving me this opportunity, and I look forward to all of you. And any queries anybody has, more than happy to answer. Thank you for your time, though.